For the second time, popular Fuji musician, Alhaji Wasiu Ayinde, has written to Ogun State Governor, Dapo Abiodun, alleging his exclusion from the ongoing selection process of the next Awujale of Ijebu and calling for its cancellation to prevent protracted litigation. In his latest letter dated January 14, 2026, KWAM1, which was cited by Punch Online on Friday, as the musician is popularly called, through his lawyer, Dr. Wahab Shittu, specifically urged Abiodun to declare the Fusengbuwa Ruling House nomination meeting held on Monday, January 12, 2026, null and void for allegedly failing to comply with the Ogun State Obas and Chiefs Law 2021. Ayinde faulted what he described as the imposition of a delegate system, and the physical exclusion of some members by a faction within the ruling house from participating in the nomination meeting. He stated that this amounted to an arbitrary and ultra vires exercise of authority, undermining the statutory duty of the ruling house to conduct an open and transparent nomination. The musician noted that following the demise of Oba Sikiru Adetona, it became the turn of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House to present candidates for the Awujale stool. He disclosed that the Secretary of Ijebu Ode local government, in a letter with Ref. 10 LJ 584, 11/34 dated January 6, 2026, directed members of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House to convene a statutory meeting for the nomination of candidates. Ayinde said the directive was issued in line with the customary laws of Ijebuland and the chieftaincy regulations of Ogun State. He further explained, however, on January 12, 2026, at Bisrod Hotel, Ijebu Ode, the designated venue for the nomination exercise, our client and numerous other eligible members of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House were deliberately excluded and prevented from entering. Heavily armed security personnel, including the Nigeria police and other operatives, were reportedly stationed at the venue and were used to disenfranchise legitimate members. Entry to the meeting was restricted through the issuance of special cards to purported delegates, selected by a faction within the ruling house. This delegate system was unilaterally introduced and was never agreed upon by our client or other disenfranchised members, who maintain their right to attend and participate directly in the statutory meeting of the ruling house. This deliberate obstruction prevented our client and others from exercising their fundamental right to participate in the nomination process for the Awujale stool. Ayinde, who is also the Olori Omooba of Ijebuland, asserted that the nomination exercise purportedly conducted on January 12, 2026, without the full and free participation of all eligible members of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House, including himself, is procedurally defective, unlawful and consequently null and void. In the overriding interest of justice, peace and the preservation of the sanctity of traditional institutions, the musician urged Abiodun to declare the purported nomination exercise conducted by the Fusengbuwa Ruling House on January 12, 2026, null, void and of no effect whatsoever. The law firm also asked the governor to order a fresh, transparent, inclusive and fair nomination exercise for the Awujale stool, ensuring that all eligible members of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House, including our client, are accorded their right to participate without any form of inhibition or discrimination. Recall that 95 persons, comprising 94 princes and 1 princess from the Fusengbuwa Ruling House of Ijebu Ode, emerged on Monday as contestants for the vacant stool of Awujale and paramount ruler of Ijebuland. The contestants emerged at the nomination meeting held at Bisrod Hall, GRA, Ijebu Ode, Ogun State. The exercise was presided over by the chairman of the ruling house, Oba Abdulatif Aoyemi, his deputy, Prince Adedokan Ahidagba, and the vice chairman, Professor Fasi Yusuf, while the secretary to the Ijebu Ode local government, Abiodun Oke, and other officials attended as observers. Speaking with journalists at the end of the meeting, Aoyemi commended family members for conducting themselves peacefully and ensuring that nothing untoward disrupted the process. He said, as foretold by the Ifa oracle, the family was working collectively to ensure that the next Awujale would further take Ijebuland to greater heights. The selection of a new Awujale has generated considerable interest, with Ayinde, popularly called KWAM1, also declaring his intention to vie for the throne. However, the Fusengbuwa family, which is the ruling house to produce the next Awujale, declared that the musician was not a member of their family and therefore could not participate in the selection process. Ayinde had earlier approached the Ogun State High Court sitting in Ijebu Ode seeking an interim injunction restraining Abiodun and 6 others from proceeding with the selection process. The court declined to grant the injunction, saying the application lacked merit. The musician, through his lawyer, later withdrew the suit without giving any concrete reason. In an earlier letter dated January 8, written to Abiodun by Shittu, the musician faulted the decision to adopt a delegate system for the nomination. He argued that fixing the nomination for January 12, 2026, while directing that the exercise be conducted by delegates to be selected at a meeting scheduled for January 10, 2026, was a clear attempt to disenfranchise interested members of the ruling house. Ayinde maintained that the arrangement was inconsistent with the spirit and letter of the Chieftaincy Declaration and the Ogun State Obas and Chiefs Law 2021, urging the governor to halt the process in the interest of justice and fairness. When contacted, the vice chairman of the Fusengbuwa Ruling House, Professor Yusuf, confirmed receipt of the letter but described it as errant nonsense and of no consequence to the ongoing process. Efforts to get the reaction of the state government were unsuccessful as the Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Ganiyu Hamzat, had yet to respond to inquiries sent to him as of the time of filing this report.